Hello, I'm Paul Hardingham, the Vicar of St Peter's, and welcome to my thought for the day. It was the Liverpool manager, Bill Shankly, who famously said, "Some people think football is a matter of life and death. I assure you it's much more serious than that." Now, TV is currently full of Euro 2020 matches. Now, either this will please you or frustrate you. But in an open letter recently to the nation from the England manager, Gareth Southgate, he wrote there's something I tell our players before every England game, that when you go out there in this shirt, you have the opportunity to produce moments that people will remember forever. He continues, every game, no matter the opposition, has the potential to create a lifelong memory for an England fan somewhere. Now that phrase, create a lifelong memory, really resonates with me. As a Christian, I'm always wanting to create lifelong memories in my relationship with God and his people. And this means that I'm able to remember those times clearly when I've seen God at work in my life and others. And this really builds faith, especially in times like this present pandemic. Now, such experience will shape our identity, define who we are as we see God's grace at work in our lives. Recently, when I was getting a new mobile phone, the guy in the shop, who obviously had never really come across a vicar before, asked me the question, "So how did you become a vicar?" It got me thinking and immediately took me back to that original call to ordained ministry over 40 years ago. It shaped my life then and continues to do so. Our problem is that we too easily forget what God has done in our lives. When the people of Israel were ready to enter the promised land, having wandered in the wilderness for 40 years, Moses tells them these words in Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 9. "Only be careful and watch yourselves closely so that you do not forget the things your eyes have seen or let them fade from your heart as long as you live." Moses' plea drew from his own experience and his own memories. God had freed them from slavery in Egypt, parted the Red Sea, and provided food from heaven and water for them to drink. Yet the people forgot God's care for them, and in that wilderness wanderings reverted to idolatry, grumbling, and criticism. Now we too can easily fall into these ways. However, when we do recall what God has done, the natural path is one of worship. The Psalms are full of that call to remember what God has done and to be grateful. For example, Psalm 77 says, "To this I will appeal, the years when the Most High stretched out his right hand. I will remember the deeds of the Lord. Yes, I will remember your miracles of long ago." Of course, this doesn't mean that we should make, through our memories, us to live in the past. That's not an excuse we need. The Old Testament prophets called on God's people to remember the work that God had done in the past in order to prepare them for the future. So Isaiah in Isaiah 42 says, "See, the former things have taken place, and now new things I declare. Before they spring into being, I announce them to you." As we begin to move out of lockdown, I wonder what memories of God's grace and faithfulness in the past will encourage us to step into new things in the future, in our personal lives, work family, in our work or family or church life. I know for me, as I prepare to retire, I'm aware that I'm facing a whole new, very different phase of life. It's challenging to know how best to use my time for God. However, I am drawn back to a couple of verses that were given to me when I was preparing for ordination all those years ago. In 2 Timothy chapter 1, verses 6 and 7. "For this reason, I remind you to fan into flame the gift of God, which is in you through the laying on of my hands. For the Spirit of God does not make us timid, but gives us power, love, and self-discipline." Now, these verses still inspire me to press into all that God has for me now and in the future. To recognise that I have the Spirit within me that enables me to know God's power, his love, and his self-discipline. So I just say, let's not forget to keep going on in this business of creating lifelong memories now and in the future. Thank you.